I met James Travers a few years back at a DCI event that was hosted in New York City by the Brooklyn Steppers. So turns out a lot of cadet alumni came to that event. Blue Devils were there. James was there. And we got to talking and realized we marched together in this crazy year. And then he had this idea. He wanted to just chat about what was the season like, what was the experience like. And that's what kind of materialized into this thing that you're seeing.
Now that we've kind of done everybody, I think all sections and people have been covered. What's your thoughts about the whole project? What do do you think anything different than you did before, or does it confirm what you thought before, or does it shake what you thought before?
This has been a journey. This has really been. I was thinking today, we started talking about this on 96th Street in Amsterdam? No, Riverside Drive.
Yeah, in the park.
That out, yeah, in the park. I'm glad everybody took part. I get a lot of great feedback about this series. We did a good job. Well, I knew we were going to do a good job. I wasn't worried about that. I didn't know that there was so much anger, and not just on you guys' part, but on Drumline's and other corps. It's been very interesting to hear your part and everybody else's parts. Particularly Kevin Murray.
Yeah,
it was interesting to hear him. We were just like in this world all by ourselves, and we didn't know what was going on in the outside. It's been really an eye-opener, I think, for you guys, knowing what we were thinking and how we were going about doing what we were doing and what we thought about the outside world, outside our bubble. For me, Retreat was kind of like, should I really be worried about what's going on right now, or should I just let it fly, And I really wasn't sure. I really wasn't sure, because...
In what sense? What do you mean?
I just mean in that it was bordering on, I didn't know if it was going to be physical. When I marched in my Class A drum corps, we were into drum scores and who was what, and Bridgman was at the time dominating.
Yeah,
and it was all about Bridgman, and everybody wanted to be Bridgman. So that type of drum thing, where you're kind of in the know of what's going on and who's doing what, that kind of existed for me in the Class A drum corps that I was in. But when I went to Garfield, that just all ceased. The drum line was trying to keep up. So we were working hard just to not hold the rest of the corps back. That was our mindset, is always, we're like behind the 8 ball. So we didn't have time to think about everybody else, because we were really terrible. We were terrible. And we were the worst section in the corps, and we knew it, So I guess that mentality of always just working to be good is kind of permeated through all the other years, because it was always about Jeremiah, or it was always about On the Waterfront, and it never was about, well, let's check out Santa Clara, or let's check out Blue Devils. It's interesting to hear I feel like I was in a cult.
Well, it was a good one. So I'm going to hold your feet to the fire a little bit, though, because you didn't answer the question. From the start, from the top till now, has anything changed? Has your opinions been reinforced?
My thing is, and to your point, it's not from a place of vanity, or it's not from a place of, yeah, motherfucker. But my attitude has been, after I've watched and kind of seen and listened and heard, is, yeah, but what's done is done. It's done, and I'm glad that I was in the place that I was in. I was fortunate to be in that place. But no, I still feel the same way. I still got crazy love for Santa Clara. I still respect the Blue Devils and love them today. They're like they are the front runner in terms of art and what they're doing on the field. I love them. I mean, in the 80s, I didn't like the Blue Devils. I could care less about them. But do I feel differently? No, I don't. I really don't. It's just been interesting to hear what people think.
Mm-hmm.
That's all.
Because I don't want to say come around, but I've been exposed to different people's what different people thought, and how they felt everything went, and how they felt the results were. I'm not going to say I came around in a sense, but I've definitely got a different perspective, and one of my favorite things is, you don't know, and a lot of the guys in the line don't know, but I knew some of you guys, or I was aware of some of you guys since '84, my first year. And so I saw you in '84 many times. And so it's a different thing to, I knew Michael Jones in the tenor line at the Cadets when I was marching my little corps in '84. And so now to, I don't want to say be at the same level, but be competing with you was crazy to me. And so it's a different, it's allowed me a different perspective on some things.
You said it gave you a different perspective?
Well, it gave me a different perspective in the sense that, like, when I saw you in particular, but all of those corps in '84, Blue Devils, you guys, Cavalier, any top 12 corps, right. It was amazing. Phantom, 27th Lancers, whoever.
You were in what? Northern Aurora?
No, 27th Lancers.
What corps were you?
Oh, I was in Spartans. No, I was in Spartans.
You were in 27th Lancers? Okay.
No.
Spartans. So you were in the Spartans in '84. Yeah.
That was my first year. I played French horn the year before, and so wow. I was in the Spartans, and I saw, West Side Story. That's my favorite drum corps show of all time, and it just so happened that was my first year of drum corps. I saw the Whitewater show where, the tumble, and the legendary, all that stuff, and
wow. You were there?
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude, Spartans were done by like 10:30 in the morning. we were finished. We had gone back to the housing, changed our clothes, ate, and came back, and you guys still weren't there. Then in '87, to be competing against you guys, it was just another thing.
I know exactly what you mean.
The perspective I got was, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but going from the small corps to competing against the Cadets or the Blue Devils and beating the Blue Devils in these corps, it was amazing to me.
Right.
And so talking to all of the guys that we have so far, it was very interesting to see that you guys were just like us. You know what I mean? You guys were.
In what way?
Well, you were just dudes. You know what I mean? You just people. My favorite moment of everything we've done is, what's his name? Shambo?
Yeah.
What, I can't remember what his name is, but
his name is Brad. His name is Brad.
And when we had that interview with him, and you could see he was getting emotional. The fact that you guys winning affected us at this level, you know, and that really hit me.
Are a person that has been in my mind for the past 30 years. What did I do to make this happen? What was my role in this, and how do I feel about that? And I had to be okay with the fact that, yeah, I won and this guy lost. Man, I really feel for that guy. And if I was in his shoes, what would I do? And I have to be okay with that from a sporting perspective, from a competitive perspective. And that was kind of a new concept for me.
You know, that really hit me, that he would care so much and, you know, have that much give a fuck about someone else. It just made me realize that, you know, and I didn't hate the cadets. No one in Santa Clara hated the cadets at all. We had a great respect for you. It was more of just the emotion of the whole season. But the fact of him caring that much just let me know we were on the same level, man. It's all this big thing that we shared together. Yeah. And that was great. And it was nice to change my perspective, you know, that you guys weren't just a bunch of whatever out there trying to hurt us. You're just doing your thing. Yeah. And, you know, your thing just happened to be judged as better than ours, you know, and that's what that is. Right. So with that being said, I'm still not okay with taking second place. I'm still not okay.
I mean, I think you mistake me and Martha, but I think you mistake me for trying to change your mind in some way about all of that and how you feel about that and what it means and blah, 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 blah. I just was trying to present another viewpoint, another way of looking at it. I wasn't trying to save you. I wasn't trying to change your mind. But, you know, it was interesting that you thought when we first met that we were talking and I was giving you the spiel, that you thought it was like some bullshit. And then having talked to everybody, and it's funny because I got the email from George and he was touched by that the most, was that we were kind of regurgitating the stuff that he had taught us, you know, and it was some good stuff. It really was some good stuff. And, you know, you brought up in some other interviews, I never considered the fact that we were so young at the time, 17-year-olds. But it just was the way that we was touched by the fact that, you know, some things sunk in. I don't know. You know, he felt proud. Because that was a big thing with him. For whatever reasons, you know, so.
Well, I get it. And it worked. You know, it worked out in the end.
I think it only worked out in that if we had lost, we would have been okay. I think that's where that stuff kind of comes into play. It never really comes into play when you're winning, because you're winning.
And see, that's it. And that's, so, you know, this is one of our major disconnects, I feel, is that that's the thing. You won. And so...
So what?
So that didn't come into play. You didn't have to worry about what, you know, it's easy to say that from the victory stand, but you didn't have to deal with that. See, like everybody says 86, whatever, but you know, I can't believe, and this is one thing, man, I can't believe that you guys were out there working 12 hours a day as hard as you were working, and you didn't care about how you finished. I guess that's me. That's me.
But that's where you. I think the disconnect is that we did like winning. Who doesn't like to win? Who doesn't like to come in first place?
But that's not the thing.
But the thing is that just like you plan to win. And this is where I think a lot of other corps missed it back in the 80s. I don't know what they think now, but where we were ahead of the game is we had a plan for if we lost.
The Garfield Cadets.
We had a plan for if things didn't go our way. And I think that's where the other corps missed it. Period. We had a plan. If we lost, this is what this is going to mean to us. Not just for losing, but winning too. I mean, we won the same way we lost. I mean, we won. Thank you, we won. But I mean, sometimes we won and we knew we weren't good. And sometimes we lost and we knew we were better than that. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it was about evaluate yourself and have a plan if you lose. What?
Intellectually, I get that. But let's say you have 100% and you give your 100% towards winning. But then you also have a plan to lose. So,
but the thing about winning in the activity that we are in is we don't get to judge. It's not like Mary Lou Retton goes out and she throws a 10, but even in those situations, there's still a judge. So, I mean, the bottom line is that somebody at the end of the day is deciding, so it just was about not giving all that power to somebody else.
Yeah, that's I just don't understand that.
Why we wouldn't be practicing every day to win?
No, more like not I don't know how to even say it, man. Like losing to me never came into my thinking. I don't have any place in my thinking to plan for losing. And so the way I justify.
But how can that be when you have other people deciding when you lose and when you win? How can that be?
Because
100%.
I think we're just that good, and that's what I was gonna say. Is that
I'm just saying that as a metaphor for life, or I'm looking at it on a bigger scope than drum corps. But
no,
I'm just saying,
exactly.
If somebody else decides that James doesn't get the vice president position, this guy gets the vice president position, does that mean James is still less qualified, less probably the better candidate, blah, 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 blah? Is that what that means because of that decision that somebody else got to make?
No.
I mean, I don't know.
No. Well, the and that's a perfect example, because what I would say, and how it applies to us, the problem in that scenario is James put his future in the hands of somebody else. James allowed someone else to make that decision for him. There's an old sports metaphor that you never want to put it in the hands of the referee. You know what I mean? You don't ever want the referee to decide the outcome of the game. And for whatever reason, the referee, in this case, the judges, decided the outcome. So in your scenario, my response would be, how did we let it get to that point? What did we not do to take it out of the hands of the judges? You guys obviously did something to get a 30 to do perfect. And so that's a problem to me. You know what I mean? Like, if you're saying, using the drum corps analogy, in my life, I don't want somebody else to decide just as a life plan. I don't ever want to incorporate losing. If you start out thinking about that, the possibility is there that you can lose, that's tough. That's a tough thing to get over. I don't ever want to incorporate the possibility of losing into my future. And I don't ever want to accept it. What other place is it okay to accept second? It's never, you get a heart transplant. Oh, he's the second best. No, I want the best,
right.
And so to be the second best, and you and other people, Martha, whoever, have said, well, second best isn't bad. It is. It is bad. Second place is not good. You didn't achieve your goal. You didn't achieve what you set out to do. So in what other arena is it okay to not achieve the top, your best? And that's what I don't understand, why people are okay with accepting that. I'm not. I'm not okay with accepting not winning and doing the best and achieving the highest level. Now, that being said, that, like you said, it's over and that's what's done. So I know that it happened, but I'm not okay. I'm not okay with being in second place. You know, I'm not saying you guys didn't deserve first. I'm not saying the judges were wrong, but to ask me to say, second place, okay, I'll take it. Never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes I just felt like we were being forced or trying to be coerced into believing what the community believed. A comment like,
you're asking who was the cleanest that night. I'm going to say Blue Devils were probably the cleanest. They played the fewest amount of ticks. But if you ask who the judges and DCI probably said, hey man, this is where we want the activity to go.
You know, I kind of took offense to that. Then what are you guys wanting us to say, that somehow the judges got together and decided this is where we want the activity to go and we're going to just dump it in their laps? I know what we did. And that's the bottom line. The bottom line is what, regardless of what anybody believes or doesn't believe, and then that whole thing with the perfect score and does that mean you played perfect? That is so childish to me. That is so simple to me, because it's obvious as human beings, perfection doesn't exist. But to the extent that people really believed or bought into it meant that we played perfect, it just seems so childish to me. But I don't know, maybe if I was in another line or in another... What I learned in this series was that kind of the Blue Devils were kind of like the alpha male. They were the jocks of the high school. They were the jocks.
Yeah, for sure.
And everybody wanted to be them, be with them, have some affiliation with them. And I think people were trying to respond to the Blue Devils by being the Blue Devils. You can't out BD the BD. You know what I'm saying? You can't out Blue Devils. I can get down with I'm the best. I should win. My team is the best. I can get down with all of that. But I just thought that you were a little arrogant in that you were coming in to this situation. Now, okay, you went to Santa Clara because you wanted to be the best and be with the best and blah, 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 blah. Sometimes I would look at you and I'd go, look at this rookie. You know, you know, he's coming into this situation. He's marching in Santa Clara. But yeah, you know, that was my little snapback attitude, is like, but you're a rookie.
I get that. And you're not wrong. Yeah, you're not wrong for that. And in retrospect, you know, I think about it like, you know, maybe I should have played stuff a little closer to the vest. Yeah, you're right. No, you know, there ain't nothing. The reason we lost, and the thing that kind of cost us, and the word around the water cooler, was the snare line in Santa Clara. That's what kind of cost us. We were dirty. We weren't playing well, and that kind of drifted back to you guys.
Right.
I
mean, let me correct the record. When we heard about Santa Clara during the season, Santa Clara was amazing. They had the amazing show, but that the drum line was dirty, and particularly the snares. I never heard anything about you guys playing a bad show in finals. I didn't know I didn't hear you guys until the recordings long after, you know, the DCI recordings. So I don't know what you guys did on final.
That was
night.
the rumor. That was what people were saying about our drum line, and the snare line was dirty. But I have to say this, you know, we heard the same thing about the Cadets drum line, is that they didn't play.
Really?
You know, like, you know, and you kind of cracked my face on it a couple of times where I would say you guys didn't play for 32 bars, and then all of a sudden you'd come in and play blah blah blah. I don't think that takes away from what you guys did, even if you didn't play as much as some other people.
Right.
But you more than made up for it with your marching and, you know, some of the innovations that you guys were doing in the bass line in particular, and different sounds and the cymbals. So the front ensemble. So just as you heard that the snare line might have been dirty, we were hearing that, yeah, their drill is incredible. The music, the horns are killing it. The drum line's just not playing. The Blue Devils were good in '87, man. And to say that the Blue Devils weren't good in '87 and weren't clean, that's I can't buy that, because
Listening to you sing their praises, particularly to a person who doesn't really particularly care about them in the 80s, but care for them. I was surprised to see that they came in fourth, and I was surprised to see that you guys had beat them by a half a point.
Whether you liked what they did or didn't like what they did, or you feel like they were just playing a bunch of exercises behind a horn line, those guys were clean. I'm going to have to challenge you right there, Mike.
On what?
because you have said that you did have an issue with the Blue Devils. You said they didn't give you the respect that you deserved.
I don't hold back on that. I didn't care for them from a competitive standpoint, and I was fortunate enough at the time to be beating them. You know, if we weren't beating them, I could have been just like everybody else, but I thought they were disrespectful. Their methods of intimidation, they tried to intimidate you. They tried, you know, just go out and play your fucking horn and play your drum, and let's decide it. Let's decide
on the field.
Like that. Yeah, you know, don't march by us grunting and making noises, or coming in front of us on retreat, and the cymbal players got West is best taped to the bottom. You know, all of those antics. So I never really kind of respected them as a core. I always thought they were a great core. I love the Blue Devils.
So let me ask you this question: do you feel like that intimidation and the grunting and the West is best on the feet, do you feel like that influenced how you felt about them in your opinion? Like so when I say I respect them and like them, do you think?
I don't care about that.
Okay, all right.
I don't care about that, but I have an issue with you saying that they were the cleanest. To hear any drumline standing in a parking lot playing exercises or even playing their book is so much different than them running around on the field playing that same book.
Agreed.
So to say that Blue Devils is good in the lot, I don't want to harp on Blue Devils because it's going to come across as, and I don't feel that way. But to hear a drum line in the lot versus what they do on the field it's two completely different worlds altogether.
Okay, I'm going to step in real quick, and I'm going to ask if you include this in the thing. I'm going to ask for an apology from my 87 Blue Devils friends, but Blue Devils in the lot weren't much different from Blue Devils in the field. They didn't march too much more in the lot than they did on.
I have to
take.
Considering the fact that you stand still in the show, so yeah, I guess
that's what I'm saying.
You are practicing what
they didn't march too much more in the lot or on the field than they did in the lot, bro. So,
okay, so fine.
what they did in the lot was pretty much the field.
I'm gonna have to take your word for
it. And that's another thing I want to just bring up real quick is that you have to remember that I was a drum corps nerd.
I
You
couldn't
know.
understand that. That's the part I just. Once you join Santa Clara, to me, that whole fandom thing should have been gone. I mean, you're in the best corps in the world at the time. You guys are going across the. I didn't understand. I understood the fandom, but I didn't understand how you had time to be a fan. If you were in the top corps in the country, how you had time to be a fan, but you had time to be a fan.
Mhm.
And I just once
Yeah.
you're in Santa Clara Vanguard, all of that was gone. But I can say that because I beat Santa Clara. But even when I was competing in my first year, 83, that was Santa Clara Vanguard, that was Blue Devils. That wasn't you used to get me so
Yeah, I did.
with
Yeah,
all
I
of that.
did.
And it's like, but that's James, and I understand that's
No, but
James.
here's the thing too, is like, again, you extrapolate it into my practices in real life. You have to see whoever you're competing against, whoever you're up against,
right.
don't you have to see what they're doing and see
I
what
don't
they're
know.
doing to see what they're doing better?
No, you don't care to.
I did.
care to see what other groups were doing.
I did.
Okay.
And that's another thing that is to be addressed a little bit is how many times did you see Blue Devils in 87, either on the lot or on the field?
I never saw them.
I probably saw Blue Devils 20 times in 87
Right.
in the lot, or I made it a point to go watch Blue Devils. So I know what the
Right.
Blue Devils were doing. You and Martha didn't see them. But you're
Right.
telling me who saw them at least 20 times, but I do understand that what happens on finals night might not be your best show. You know, you might have fucked up that night. I
Right.
get that. You know, with people saying that Santa Clara's snare line was dirty, I'll be that all day. I'll take it. But man, we have at least 4 really, really, really good examples out there of what we did on finals night. We have the 3 judges tapes, and then we have Nathan's harness recording. And that shit was fucking clean, dude. It was clean. It was clean. I mean, there was some things here and there, but it's nothing worse than the missed direction change or the drop mallet. It's no different than that.
Another conspiracy theory. Nobody dropped the mallet. I wish people would stop saying that. Nobody dropped the mallet. Nobody fell. Some other conspiracy theory out here.
I've heard from cats that yes, there was a misdirection change. Cats in that 87 line said yes. One of the tenor
Jordan
players.
said it. Jordan said it himself. Jordan did.
Yeah, exactly.
Quad player,
And,
yeah.
and I have heard that from people who marched in that line that yes, there was a drop mallet. Whether or not, whatever, it doesn't. That part doesn't matter.
I've never heard. I've never heard it. Never saw it. But okay, did this happen in finals?
I didn't march in the cadet, so I don't know. If you say no, then it didn't happen.
I think that as important as it is to make light of a situation or make light of a topic, that it's also just as important to give that clarity too. How could they think like that, or where did
Wait,
they come
what
up
do you mean? All the things you heard, and in which
with-
sense?
little things like
What?
we didn't play for 32 measures. Okay,
Yeah.
that wasn't true. And if you're gonna make light of that situation, then say why we didn't play for 32 bars, or something as stupid as there was tape on all of the snare drums, so Garfield must have taped the snare drums so that we wouldn't hear them, or we wouldn't hear their clarity, or silly things like that. It's just like people really believe that kind of stuff, and it is silly to me. But being on the outside, you understand how people could think. Garfield taped their drums because he had to get them to make them sound as good as we could make them sound, not because we were trying to hide. Stuff like that. It bothers me.
That was something I wanted to bring up, it was the tape snare drums. And you also have to think of the era we're coming out of. You know, we're coming out of ticks and all that stuff, and now you guys have these paper towels with tape and all this stuff, and cats are like, you know, why are they doing that? Are they trying to cover up something? I'm not sure what that was about, and you know,
I
I'm
just
not
told
saying
you what it was about.
no, but
I told you. To try to get those drums to sound decent.
those are pearls, right?
Yeah, those were pearls. We were double rimming, like everybody was double rimming
Triple.
that year, and taping and pencils and everything to get those drums to sound good. You know,
No,
those snares, they had a lot of trouble with those snares. The quads were fine.
the quads are great.
Yeah, the snares, they just didn't make them strong enough. So they were constantly blowing gaskets, blowing, you know, whatever those things were. Constantly.
And so I don't disagree with you because I've had that same experience, but you can see maybe how that enters into the consideration of the whole thing. You know, whether
But
it's
some
right.
things just sound silly to me. I don't understand why they don't sound silly to other people. Michael Jackson sleeps with a monkey every night. You know, it's like, oh my God, Michael Jackson sleeps with a monkey every night. You know, but I mean, how silly does that sound? But you know, you can't fight every battle. You can't fight every battle. You wanted us to believe what you believed. It started to become monotonous. Like, I don't think you guys played a perfect score. If you want to talk about who was cleanest, how do you tell that to the winner? How do you? I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't have said it. I wouldn't have said it, but it added spice to the whole series. It added spice to, and you were speaking not only for yourself in Santa Clara, you were speaking for the West Coast, because once I saw that at that social media event, I said, oh, they all think like that. Not just James and not just Santa Clara. They all think like that. We know we didn't play perfect, so to keep harping on that and then to further add insult to injury by saying that the Blue Devils, who came in fourth place, was the cleanest. It's like, okay, so what are you really saying? Like, I'm surprised that you think that we couldn't possibly have played clean or good or perfect. But if it was the Blue Devils, that might have gone down a little bit easier.
Well, two things. I think you've already kind of commented on it, but 87 was the year that you guys got a perfect score. I always loved the Cadets, and I love the books that you guys played. 84 is my favorite year. 85 is incredible. 83, 82, 87. But you guys were never thought of as players, you know what I mean? Like, you guys, and 87 was the year where you decided to show everyone, no, we can play. You know, we have some stuff.
That's my point. That's my point. And that's more my point than a lot of those guys, because I was there from day one when we sucked. I was there from day one when we were struggling to keep up with the core.
Right.
To now, you know, this is who we are. You know, this is who we've been working to be all of these years. So it's a little bit more personal to me than some of the first yearers of people who just came in that year.
Yeah.
You know, so I know what it was, and I know what it took to get to that place. The perfect score, that's all about you guys and everybody else who wants to him and haw about that, because like a lot of the guys said, when we think about that season, that's not what we think about. We don't think about that score. But I know what it took to get to that place, and you know, that's a major accomplishment.
So, and with that being said, you know, since this is the wrap-up episode, I hope you don't think I've diminished that accomplishment. You know, that I don't understand that. You know, because I do.
I never gave thought to it, but you know what it takes. You did it. You did it at
No,
a very
I-
high level. You did
it.
You did it.
Here we go. No,
So you did. Y'all
I
didn't
know what
work
it
that
takes.
hard?
No, we worked hard. Yeah, we worked very hard. Yeah. But then again, we have that first place, second place thing that you don't
Right.
like to talk about.
Right.
I feel like if you work that hard towards the goal and you finished second place, there was something else that you could have done to win because you guys did whatever that other thing was to win.
Right.
And that's the whole thing that, that's how I kind of started all of this thing where, you would say it doesn't matter about the score, but you guys, whatever it was, that 5/10, you guys did it.
2 great cores. 2 amazing performances. 1 unforgettable night. 30 after 30. The most talked about.